Talking with the founder of Thinkerbell, the industry's best-groomed man, Adam Ferrier. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Co-founder of Thinkerbell with a couple of mates.
Let's do that again then. Co-founder.
No.
Okay, you can use it if we want. Right. I'm just reading. I'm chatting with the janitor of Thinkerbell. He's very low down. He doesn't really do anything for the company, does he?
No. I'm the company mascot.
Chris Taylor here for B&T TV, and my guest today is the co-founder of Thinkerbell, the best-groomed man in the advertising industry, Adam Ferrier.
Thank you. That's how I often get referred to as. I appreciate that.
You've got a look, don't you? I think I've seen you on TV, I've seen you on panels. Is this the only outfit you have?
Yeah, in advertising we would call it knowing your distinctive brand assets. And so being overweight, wearing black, dishevelled hair, my Coles bag, all of that kind of stuff. It's a very, very carefully constructed look.
Hours of work's gone into that. And you were just telling me, literally just when he walked in here, you used to be Billy Connolly's body double.
Yeah, I did. It's just for a short tour while he was over here. I used to like doing extras work, and one of the bit of extras work I got was to be his body double, and they did all the lighting against me and all that kind of stuff. That was quite good fun. It's kind of nice knowing that I had a similar body shape to Billy Connolly. I don't know why I find that comforting.
What was the audition process, if there was? Like, how did you get the job?
I think it was measurements. I think that's all I had to do, right? And then I had to stand there. They did lighting off me and all that kind of thing. So I didn't act or tell jokes or anything. I just had to stand where he was standing so they could do lighting off me and things like that. So it's quite an easy gig if your body shape is the same as Billy's.
Did it pay well?
No. It paid terribly. And yeah, nothing.
Did you get to meet him?
No.
Right. So it's sort of quite demeaning work. You basically stand on a spot because you are approximately the same size as someone vaguely famous.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it demeaning. I think it was a step up, and it was like I was gainfully employed for that period of time. Yeah.
Well, another of your early jobs, I understand, is you worked in a prison, a maximum security prison. What was that like?
Yeah, that was great. It was really interesting. So I graduated from university with degrees in psych and commerce, but basically I just had to get a job wherever I could, and I had a friend who worked at Corrective Services New South Wales, and so I started working at Oberon Correctional Centre, but then also Long Bay and Bathurst as well for a few years.
And how much did that prepare you, do you think, for a career in advertising? Like, did you see people on the inside in the slammer that were easier to deal with than clients?
It taught me how to spot a psychopath pretty well, which has been pretty useful. But what it really did do, I know this is a bit deep, but it really taught me that everybody wants to see themselves in the best possible light. So no matter how bad inmates' actions were, they had to distort their cognitions and make sense of that action to see themselves in the best possible light possible. And seeing that happen at such an extreme level kind of made it really easy for me to spot it in other people, and we're all kind of just going by rationalising our own behaviours and trying to make sense of the actions we take rather than acting in any kind of deliberate way.
What I love about listening to you talk about the industry is you always really emphasise the psychological aspect, consumer psychology. How much importance would you place on that compared to pure creativity? Do you think that's the essence of making a sale?
I reckon it's a really interesting question. It's kind of ironic because anyone who works with me will say I've never had an insight, and they actually tease me a lot for not. It's kind of almost corporate bullying. And I don't know what this fictitious insight is, but I think the insight and the idea can be so closely linked together that it almost becomes one and the same thing. And I think creative people are quite sensitive to the needs, wants and desires of other people, and that's also why it can sometimes make them hard to deal with, because they're sensitive to the human condition and they know how to drop an answer into a gap in that person's psyche somehow.
Could you, using the tricks you know, could you make someone buy a product they have no interest in? Let's say I'm a non-smoker. Could you make smoking seem so appealing that even I would be open to the possibility?
Yeah, arrogantly, I would like to think so. I reckon that's what we're in the business of doing, not necessarily making people smoke, but using those. Advertising's only evil if it advertises something evil. I misquoted that. But
Let's make a less evil product. Let's say I hate puppies. Could you make me interested in puppies? Puppies is the worst example. I reckon even I could become interested in puppies. Let's say something I'm not... Dishwashing fluid. I don't particularly I'm agnostic when it comes to... Could you make me so interested and brand loyal to something I don't give a shit about?
Yeah, look, Andrew Denton, when he started Gruen, spoke about the fact that when he was at the supermarket, there was Finish and another dishwashing product, and he avoided the other one and he went to the Finish one, and he thought, oh my God, what's happening to my hand here? Why the hell do I give a shit about that one versus that one? And
Knowing Andrew, probably because it was cheaper.
So I love that. So I think that's our job, right? Is to make people really interested in these really kind of benign things and making people just think of bees differently versus that one versus that one versus that one. But to answer your question, yeah, I think with a marketing budget and enough control over your life, we can make you interested in anything. But that might have to be creating really strong social norms around you, or it might have to be limiting your ability to buy one versus the other, or it might be, playing around with price, or it might be positioning one versus another to appeal to you. So there's lots and lots of levers you can pull in marketing to make you do one thing versus another. So yeah, I reckon the impact that has is limitless, and thankfully as well on that, you're starting to see advertising and creativity applied to really big business problems and kind of big world issues and so forth, and it's unreal to see the industry start to use its powers elsewhere as well.
You mentioned Gruen. I'm always interested to know what people in the industry think of Gruen these days. You've been on the panel. I think that's where I first became aware of you. Do you think Gruen's still relevant, or do you think it's starting to repeat itself?
I reckon it's still really relevant. I'm amazed that there hasn't been more stuff gone into the wake of Gruen. Like, I think we're fascinated with popular culture and advertising, and that's kind of what we do. We create the world we live in. And so I'm amazed there aren't more shows dissecting brands and advertising and all that kind of stuff, considering the influence they have on just about every decision we make. So totally relevant.
It's interesting because it's, in an age where nothing is rating anymore, especially at the ABC, Gruen's still the one that is hanging in there, still does pretty respectable numbers. And I know you mentioned Andrew Denton and the original co-creator, John Casimir. They say this will be the year people lose interest, but they keep coming back, and maybe it is because there's nothing else in that space, or maybe it is they've tapped onto something which you just sort of articulated, that the pervasiveness of the advertising culture, and it's not really just about the advertising industry, it's about a way of thinking and marketing that influences so much beyond just the sector itself.
Yeah, think about any top-rating show, like MasterChef is about cooking. The Block is about your house and home renovations and shit. Gruen is about the world, the popular culture around us. So it's omnipresent, constantly triggering, thinking about, oh shit, look at that ad. Oh, that reminds me of that thing I heard on Gruen and stuff like that. Also, the longer the show goes, the longer the show can go as well, because it becomes, Todd and Russell have become characters in their own right. Will's obviously kind of constantly out there. The name Gruen has kind of stayed there. So as a brand itself, it's really, really strong.
Now, a couple of quick fire questions. Campaign you've been directly responsible for that you most regret or feel most didn't work?
Most regret / kind of like talking about it, because I just like kind of, what's that sadomasochistic kind of thing, is I love this whole Witchery Man in the Jacket thing we did, where we orchestrated somebody losing their jacket and then finding the person through creating an artificial love story. It all got blown up, and the news media got on board, and the industry hated us for a while. This was like 15 years ago. And there was just so many levels of that campaign that I found interesting. I liked the original idea. I hated how we dealt with it. There was lots of hubris from the agency at the time, and it was a real learning experience. But ultimately, it was actually quite successful for the brand as well.
Right. Campaign you're proudest of?
Success has many fathers, and I'm really proud of the stuff we did with Coke and Share a Coke and Coke Zero, and kind of just doing big kind of massive things like that. I also love the ongoing relationship I've had with Art Series hotels and stuff like that. But I'm also really proud now of all the work we're doing with Lion and relatively recently we brought back the jingle. I feel like a Tui is
that coming back?
Yeah, well, it's back. It's on air now. It's been back on air for.
I knew that. I watch commercial TV all the time. Really, right? Because they should all come back. There used to be a fabulous era of beer jingles in the 80s.
Yeah, it's unreal, right? And we had I met Joe, as in Mojo Johnson, Alan Johnson. And had a good chat to him about jingles. And, you think about distinctive brand assets and you think about how out of coolness jingles are, yet they're bloody effective. And so I love just championing that and I love our agency being involved in bringing back those kind of things that work. And lots of agencies I don't think could find it within themselves to bring back those kind of jingles, and that's good. And we're doing it for Vegemite as well, so we're reinterpreting the Happy Little Vegemite's jingle as well. So that kind of stuff I love.
I'd love to combine those two. If we could get Tui's and Vegemite in a product, like alcoholic Vegemite.
Well, it's all based from, so Vegemite's based on yeast-based, it's a yeast extract.
Half your work's done for you.
Yeah, totally. So watch your space.
Let's get some alcoholic Vegemite on our toast. You mentioned one of your clients is the Art Hotels. Big fan. I've stayed in the Cullen, I think in the Olsen. It's a lovely idea. What other artists do we have on the market? Can we see a Ken Doan hotel? A Larry Pickering hotel I've been lobbying for some time. What other artists are in the pipeline?
A Larry Pickering hotel would be quite disgusting, wouldn't it? They've just done, or not they've just done, a few years ago they did the Adnate Hotel, and he's a street artist who does these massive faces. So if you go to Perth, you'll see this fucking amazing hotel. But I don't know, mate. Ask them.
Not up to you. Final question for Adam Ferrier. Lovely quote here. When you were asked what advice you would offer young creatives, you said, start with the idea that will get you fired and work backwards from that. It's a really good quote. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I reckon there's lots of normalising forces and there's lots and lots of things to watch out for. And I reckon that's constraining our thinking. And it freaks me out. I think we're normalising each other all the time just through this every fucking weird thing that's going on at the moment. And so I want people to, at least for a moment in their own head, think of how they could possibly push the boundaries to the most extreme level. And then if they feel uncomfortable presenting that, then maybe just dial that back a little bit. But I'm just trying to encourage people to fuck with convention, to push their own boundaries, to expand their own minds as much as they possibly can. And I think realise that there are lots of forces in society that push against that. And so it's up to the individual to kind of keep your mind broad.
Adam Ferrier, I feel this is the closest I'll ever come to Billy Connolly. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here on B&T TV.